My name is Uncle Ruckus, and this is the story of my relations. I was born under unusual circumstances. It was the 4th of July, and I was told it was an especially good night to be born. But that was some bullshit.
It's about the love change. Do it with some soul in a little love change. Yeah, it's about the love change. Do it with some soul in a little love change. You can't make a change unless you got the love change. Do it with some soul in a little love change. You can't make a change unless you
Welcome back, y'all. It's the Boondocks Podcast, and today we're covering Season 3, Episode 14, The Color Ruckus, in which, if you loved the color purple and can't get enough of Precious, we present a powerful, emotionally gripping story of people beating on each other. Uncle Ruckus' family comes to town, and Ruckus must settle some old business with his father. Y'all, we all love daddy issues, but before we get into those, we're starting out with just a little bit of the crew today. Yeah. So, Tiara, Dean, how the fuck are you living?
My name is Daddy Issues.
We all love you.
I am the inverse of Daddy Warbucks.
I mean,
That sounds
today
feels like a real rapper persona. But yeah, go ahead.
Today's been relatively productive on your end. Like, you got the pod stuff figured out and the movers figured out, and those are both huge things.
Yeah, and let's see what else. I think I've got my living situation. I got your living situation handled.
We're going to have a week of homelessness, basically. So we're
together, though, I hope.
No.
No,
Dean, it's okay. It's because of the 3 dogs. There's nowhere that's going to take us with 3 dogs. Dean is staying with a friend with one of the dogs, and I get to have the bachelorette life with 2 of the dogs down very near to where the new house is, and so.
She's got to be down there to make sure the internet gets connected.
Right. Somebody has to be down there for all of the crap that has to happen before we get the keys on the 17th. But I'm going to be there for a week, basically.
Yep.
I don't like that.
I'm okay with it. It's weird. But it is what it is. It's better than what it was going to be.
You were gone longer to
I used to go to
Hawaii
Rollicon for much longer. For much longer. That's right. I was in Hawaii for longer.
So, yeah. It's going to be...
He's driving me down on Sunday.
The 13th.
And then we're going to have, like, dinner with some friends or whatever. And then he'll be back on Friday. Because work stuff, connection to the internet, all of that fun, great stuff, and dogs. So.
Yeah, because I still have to work. I can't take time off. So
you can't take any time off between Thanksgiving and New Year.
I've got
birthday, basically.
I've got a friend who's got gigabit internet like I do, so I'm staying there until we have internet there, and then I can haul ass down there.
Yeah.
Because I've got to pack all this stuff up.
Pandemic has made me like couples clingy. I know that's horrible. Me and my husband, listen, he can go in the other room and do his own shit, but I'm always like, right now he's at Target, and I'm like, where are you going? Okay, what are you getting? Oh, okay, can you give me snacks? Okay, hurry home. Turn your location share on. I know it's so pathetic. So that's when you're like, oh, okay,
so
we're going to be in 2 different places. I'm like, wait a minute. Can't do that. You can't do that. What if the world ends? But I know I'm being ridiculous.
Well, no,
you guys have been together.
I do that. I do that. I turn on my location. If I'm somewhere and I say I'm heading home or I'm heading over to your place, I'll turn on my location sharing so people will know.
Yes. We had a fight about it at first. I was like, why don't you want to turn on your location sharing? And then I walked, when like my health stuff kicked up, I kept walking over to the hospital because it's like a block away from us. And then it was taking me home through the shady park. And I was like, I tried to turn on location sharing and you turned it off. If I die, that's on you. So he finally turned it.
They have, I can't remember exactly what the name of it is, and I'll have to look it up, but there's an app where you push a button when you are entering into a situation where you are uncomfortable, and you basically have to push the button again within a certain amount of time, or it'll send alerts to people that you might be in an unsafe situation.
I've heard of it, like for Uber rides and shit. Like
I've seen that too.
Yeah. I don't know what it's called either, though.
I'll have to
But
look it
I
up.
know what you speak of.
I'm being the one who doesn't drive and also who, before the pandemic, had a pretty active social life between roller derby and going dancing and just hanging out with people because I don't know how I've survived the last 2 years, actually. But anyway, I'm an extrovert when I'm around people who understand me. So
same.
yeah, I've become much more of an introvert in the last while. But yeah, so we're both used to, he was a musician and used to do gigs on the other side of the water from here, which is like a 4 fucking hour drive, or you missed the last ferry, so you still have to drive around. So if I was to go out with them to those shows, I would be like sleeping in the car until 3 a.m. And that's not my thing. So we've been used to that. But we still use it. Like, we still check in with each other and all of that shit. But I know he's not worried about me because I have very, very protective friends who live down in Portland who are counting down the minutes until I'm there. And when I messaged them today and said, okay, my Airbnb is booked from the 13th to the 17th, they were like, fantastic. Okay, so on this night we could do blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm a half a block from the food carts. I'm pretty much going to do that and sit in the patio.
Yeah.
So you can come to me.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's good.
It'll be good. It'll be fine. And we'll probably have video chats because we're those people.
Yeah, we are too. I went on a work trip and I didn't particularly love the place I was working, but they'd all be like, oh yeah, we're going out to the bar. I'd be like, okay. I'd go right into that room and start FaceTiming with my husband. I don't give a fuck. I don't want to hang out with y'all. Sorry to be negative. But that's what it was. So yeah, we are those people too. Fall asleep together on FaceTime late at night and all that. Corny shit. Someone is listening to this right now like, you people need to get a life and make new friends. Because I know that's the
I think it's adorable that you're married to your best friend. I'm married to my best friend. I think it's fantastic. I do not know if I would have gotten through the last 2 years if I had not been married to my best friend.
Like, he's a social butterfly. So he needs that external stimulation. I used to be a social butterfly, but right when he and I got together, I was going through the cutoff stage where I always say to people, like, you need to become selfish. You can't overgive to others. I know if MJ was on, she would agree with me, but I was in that mode. So it just so happened that happened. And then pandemic happened. And he said the same thing to me one day. Thank God we got married when we did and met when we did, because I'd be so lonely during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about some news.
Oh, my God. There's so many things. So many fucking amazing. Okay, what is it? The whole Charlottesville thing, the verdict came down in that civil suit, and it's like $26 million settlement, or not settlement, but judgment against the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and I think the 3 Percenters, but I don't think that's actually an organized. That's just a wannabe.
Right, and my kind of thing with it is, do these organizations, like, I know there's people attached to them, but like, how are you going to get this money though? Like,
right.
You know what I mean?
And from what I remember, like the I don't actually even know who the people in charge of these groups are anymore. It used to be super obvious because when they were still growing, dude's face was out there all the time with Richard Spencer or whatever his name was. And I know that he's no longer doing it and he's like bankrupt, but I do think he's one of the people who was sued. But there are particular people that they sued for this. So it's not like we're suing the Proud Boys. We're suing these 17 particular people who were the leaders of or did the planning for this thing. And so good. Even if it's for show, I know, like, at least there are people attached. Even if it were for show, I would be like, clap, because I'll take it at this point. And then we're still waiting for the jury to come back in the Ahmaud Arbery case, which is,
oh my God,
which was a lynching, fair and square. Not fair and square, but you know what I mean? Like, it's really fucking obvious that. And they even said themselves, no, this was all self-defense. It was all self-defense when he had no weapon, but he grabbed at my weapon. So therefore, no, it just.
Bullshit. And did you hear about the defense attorney and how she tried to evoke, it was a runaway slave situation. I know she didn't say that exactly, but they said she was trying to work up that imagery. I was like, you gotta be fucking shitting me.
Right.
She did not.
That's the there was something about right, that he felt that these guys felt empowered to do the same, to be like policemen and to do the same thing that policemen did, because they believed that this was somebody bad. And basically the justification that defense attorney was giving was the whole citizen's arrest thing started with the slave trade. And now I'm going to make this imagery of, it was the long, dirty toenails and the like dirty shorts and like basically just dehumanizing this man over and
to
over
make
and over
shit
again.
okay.
Yeah, right. To justify it.
This is how fucked up my brain is and how fucked up it works. I don't know the lyrics to it, but you know the musical Anything Goes? That's what I'm hearing in my head in this court situation.
Yes, and I promise I will not break into song, but I do know that song.
And I've heard her sing it.
I've sang it with a live band, and I love that song.
I feel like if there were any moment, this would be it. Although our listeners would probably be like, what the fuck, you guys? Too far. Too far. Not okay.
I'm actually really curious. I've never seen a video of that one. I don't think it exists.
Either. No, we saw it. I saw it. I think I saw it in like theater with my girlfriend Laura. We used to do she had friends who had the front row tickets, and whenever they didn't use them, they'd give it to her. So we would go to all the shows and get to sit like in the orchestra seats, which wouldn't you rather sit in the back? But whatever, it was cool. Anyway, that is appropriate for this situation, but inappropriate in mood. So I guess we should back away before I start offending people with how my wonky mind works.
I'm so offended.
God, there was something else too. What else?
Had Rittenhouse.
Oh, Jesus.
We had Astroworld drama is going on.
Right, just since... And then you've got the Waukesha parade. The dude, like,
oh yeah,
and a kid died today, so now it's 6 victims have died as of this recording right now. There's so much shit that has been happening in the last few weeks, or at least certain things coming to an end when you think of like the Rittenhouse trial.
That the jury found the rally organizers for Charlotte.
Yep, we said
got
that.
All right,
Yeah.
Stepped over.
And there was some. in nobody's surprised or here's my surprise face that the GOP admitted that they're paying a lot of Trump's legal bills and shit. Like, oh, that's nice. That was what I like woke up to that this morning. I was like, that's interesting. Okay. They're not even trying to pretend.
No, I feel like nobody, like the country, quote unquote, is not trying to pretend anything anymore. I saw someone post one of those little political memes, which I always try and stay away from. But this one I was like, yeah, that's fucked up. Where they were posting like a picture of Trump, Matt Gaetz, someone else.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
People. Yes, she was in there. And some of the other like January 6th people. And they're like, why are none of these individuals in prison? And they made something like, if we don't enforce justice, it's all over. And it's kind of like, bruh,
yep.
It's kind of all over.
I can't remember, like, the number of subpoenas that have been coming down over the last couple of days, though, make me feel like they're going to be coming up next. Wasn't Matt Gaetz subpoenaed for? Wait, now I got to look it up.
All I know is Alex Jones was the big one that's been talked about.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Lord. What did he? Oh, for January 6th or just for his rabble rousing? Someone said, I just have hope that they're building a hell of a case. I was like, child, I don't know. I don't think I can even float the hope boat anymore.
Right.
But
Roger Stone and Alex Jones was yesterday. Members of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers today. So along with that judgment coming down, they started getting their subpoenas for their obvious involvement. Excuse me. Who else?
I burped too.
Woo! When I do it at home, I usually don't try to hide it. And then he'll say, what? And I'll say, what?
I just say, sorry. I'm sorry.
Oops.
I can't control it. Oh, man.
Oh,
But the world is awful.
Yep.
The news is horrible. I was in such a mood today, such a bad mood. I don't. I was going to say I feel bad for some of my clients, but I totally don't because they were asking for it. And I was I don't get bitchy at people. I just get really like factual, no more niceties, no more exclamation points in emails. Just yes, no, we talked about this on Thursday, the 4th of October. Like, so I was just going off today. And everything on Twitter, all of this new shit, anything anyone said was just pissing me off. So I just turned it off.
Mhm.
That's why I'm sorry I was so late responding to you guys about like clips and stuff for today. It was just, it's too much. It's dark. It's dark, y'all.
Yeah.
But Thanksgiving's coming, so
Yeah,
give thanks.
this is going to be the first year since
You're
I
alive.
used to work retail that we are not doing Thanksgiving. Like back when I
Get
worked
out.
retail, I would volunteer to work all of the holidays because, that was good money.
Good money. Yeah.
Because back then, when $5.15 an hour was big money. No, anyway, yeah, no, we're gonna do something, but we haven't quite figured out what. But we're not doing a big family thing because, 2 weeks later, and most of our stuff
Yeah,
most
big
of my mom's stuff is
move.
packed, and most of our stuff is packed at this point.
I think I'll probably make a roast or something.
I would like that.
Ooh. Intimate Thanksgivings are underrated, I think.
Agreed. But for me, like Thanksgiving, honestly, has been. It's only important to me because it was important to my mom because she likes tradition and like any excuse to have the family gather. And like we're heading into like last Thanksgiving, Dad was not able to come and join us because he just wasn't feeling good. And then a few weeks later, he was gone. So like we're getting into that time of year and I'm not ready for that I'm not ready for that.
Girl.
So we're going to spend Christmas in our new house and my mom will be there.
Yes.
I need to find out if the boys will be with us or not, but I know that I'm going to get through this just fine, but shit, like I can feel it coming up,
Yes, ma'am. Holidays are, I know a lot of people love the time with the family, but it is especially, I know you've had a heavy end of the year, middle of the year to the end. So it always brings stuff up. I drank a whole bottle of wine last Christmas. No, last Thanksgiving. But we don't even have to get into that because that's a trigger for me as well. But I said, like, I will never do this again. But it's a hard time. They're heavy times, beautiful times, but also heavy. And,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not thankful that my dad is gone in any way, shape, or form. But if it wasn't for him dying, we would not be in the situation where we are, where we can get out of this, this house that is physically making me sick.
Absolutely,
So-
girl. Physically because of just memories.
Oh
or
no, I have chronic
Stress.
migraines from this house. Like we've proven it.
Damn.
We've proven that it comes from this house.
Damn.
So I very rarely get a migraine when if I haven't been home for a few days. Nah, my brain is great.
I'm curious how your body's going to react, like psoriasis wise, because
There's so many things that I am very curious because this house has mold and it's never been airtight and like there are fucking rats that we can never get rid of because they're fucking chewing through our goddamn ceiling. But anyway, no more.
Well,
no more.
I will project my weird spirituality shit on you guys. Even just talking about it with you guys, you can tell the energy shift. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just feel like it's going to be a whole new, beautiful, bright chapter. I know everything has bullshit that comes with it, but it just seems like this is such the positive shift, such like the happy ending, new chapter story for you guys. So I'm excited for it.
I always love a happy ending.
As
There he
one
is.
Boom.
Know what I mean? Know what I mean? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Is she a goer? Does she go?
Does she go?
Does she like photography?
Fuck. I'm guessing you don't
Monty Python.
watch Monty Python.
No, I don't. The only thing I know from Monty Python used to be some song, and I don't even remember what one. I never got into
Always
it.
Look on the bright side of life. That's the one that's most famous from them.
I don't think that's
Oh,
it.
that's not that one.
Yeah, I can't remember the rest of them from
I'm like-
Spamalot.
Right?
Because, yeah, they even made a musical called Spamalot.
Which was based on Monty Python's Search for a Holy Grail, which was a spoof of Camelot.
Yeah,
I've heard of
the
it.
the
for sure.
Arthurian legend spoofed by Monty Python.
Let me see. Monty Python songs. This is going to piss me off if I can't think of it. I'm sorry. I know we're recording live, but
next week is live. Next week. Oh, the Lumberjack Song. Is that one, maybe?
I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay.
I sleep all night and I work all day. And he wears tight clothes, suspenders, and a bra.
No, that's not it.
And I like to pick wildflowers. Yeah, I do.
Sit on my face and tell me that you love me.
I'll sit in your face and tell you that I love you.
Yeah, we've probably sang that one once or twice or 500 times. That might be the only one.
I'm looking at the whole list. Yeah, and these are not. Whatever. I will freaking message you guys at 4 a.m. Just like,
valid.
It's this song.
Valid. Absolutely valid. Okay, I need to stop. Yeah, I grew up watching Holy Grail. And then, like a million years ago, when we still collected DVDs, I had all of Flying Circus, which was their TV show. I had all of Flying Circus on DVD. I had most of their movies, not all of them. Holy Grail, Life of Brian, Meaning of Life.
Meaning of Life, yeah. Then they had their Live at the Hollywood Bowl.
I didn't have that one. But anyway, childhood, comedy from Nick at Night, basically.
That was always PBS for me.
Maybe that was it, PBS. I watched Red Dwarf on that channel.
And then after Monty Python was Faulty Towers with John Cleese.
Right, which I remember, but I never really watched.
Yeah, my dad watched it.
And what was the Benny Hill?
Benny Hill.
Yeah, anyway. See,
memories.
This is what we do. This is the conversations that happen when you've been together for 15 years. Oh, you remember that thing? Let's talk about it until we've talked about 15 years worth of all of the things that...
we should talk about.
Should we?
The Boondocks.
Are you sure?
Just saying,
I guess so. Yeah, I guess we did go over all the newsy items.
The newsies.
All right. So.
Love that musical as well. Yes, let's do it.
All right. Before I start telling everybody about this episode, I just wanted to harken back real quick to our intro clip. That was the first Easter egg of this episode, of which there are a million because of the movies that are involved in it. But that very first clip was a Benjamin Button reference, which, if you've ever seen the movie, he's born like an old man and then gets younger. So in this case, Ruckus was born a white boy and got blacker. So obvious comparisons there.
It's, because I was born black.
Right?
And I got very white.
So we begin with Uncle Ruckus narrating his origin story. I love that my name is Uncle Ruckus, and this is the story of my relations. Because he always says no relation. I just love that line. The episode flashes back. Flashbacks. That sounds weird. Many years in the past, with a white man who is rushing to the birth of his child on the 4th of July. The doctor sadly declares that the black patch on the baby's arm is an incurable skin disease that will spread over the baby's body and make him indistinguishable from a Negro. Horrified of that prospect, the man snatches the baby and runs all the way to the river, where he's about to drown the baby, except a police patrol spots him. He manages to escape and leaves the baby on a random doorstep with some money. A black couple, Bunny and Mr. Ruckus, come out of the house. The man flees the scene.
Come here, bitch. Give me something real quick.
You ain't said nothing so far about my hair.
'Cause it ain't yours.
It is so mine. I'm the first colored girl you ever met with blonde hair. And one day, I'm gonna have eyes as blue as the summer sky.
Bitch, you ain't never in a million fucking years gonna have no blue eyes. You're hairier than a motherfucker, too. Your personality ain't much to speak of either. Your cooking ain't shit. You ain't clean worth a damn. Nasty bitch. But I need somebody around here that's gonna wash the shit
Mr. Ruckus.
out of my drawers. So I guess you'll do.
Mr. Ruckus. Jesus Christ. So right off the bat, the fact that I am a child development psychology student,
that's some negging right there.
Right.
That's
it's not just
world-class.
negging. It's not just like saying, here's all your flaws, so nobody will love you, but I'll take you. You're good enough for washing my shit stains.
Watching. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you can see before you even get into the actual tale of the baby that this Black woman reveres the looks of whiter women. She wants the long blonde hair. She wants the blue eyes. So I thought that was important to bring up.
Definitely true. And then we also hear her praising white people as like it goes on. But
Right.
this is a thing I hate with people when it comes to, because I wear colored contacts and I've had white and Black people come at me over it. And like I always say, and I think I've even said on this podcast, there is a good portion of my family that has gray eyes. That's where I got the, ooh, I want those. So, and ran off and bought them.
Mhm.
And then I have natural blonde hair. I'm not a blonde by any means, but I have natural blonde hair that me and my husband used to fight about. It's there, y'all. It's just my genetics, and it is what it is, and I am a Black girl. But it was just weird to me, this whole conversation, because this morning I had a migraine and was listening to Storm Monroe's channel, and he had a woman on, and they were talking about all the issues between Black women and Black men and dating and just all the shit that I don't like to buy into, because I don't like when we talk in
Mhm.
generalizations. But like the woman was arguing about how Black men prefer to date Black men today, like of 2021, etc., prefer to date white women, and they only settle for Black women if they can't get a white woman. And like this, I don't know, this
Wow.
bullshit. Yeah, I know.
That was a very
so many people-
90s like point of view. Like I heard that shit back in the 90s for sure.
Yeah. And then people in the comments, some were totally agreeing with her and others were shredding her for filth. It was dark. But this conversation, it just immediately triggered me back. And I thought, yo, what a strange coincidence that we open with this sort of dynamic in this episode.
Absolutely. And suddenly they're going for a walk and they trip over a white baby. It just happens to be on the doorstep. And of course, because they are good people and there's money with this white baby, they decide to get married and raise the baby as their own. Which is just, I'm actually curious, like how often there have been millions of movies and books that had the premise of leaving a baby on the doorstep to be adopted by the family that found them and all of that. And like, how much truth is actually in that? Did that happen a lot back before they started doing a drop your baby off so you don't kill him kind of thing?
Never have I
Do you know
heard
what
of
I mean?
it
Right?
factually.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So okay, that was my point. So in the present time, Ruckus finds out that his grandmother, Nellie Ruckus, will finally die any moment now and comes to Woodcrest to do so. Unable to put up with her because she is just as nasty as Mr. Ruckus flees to the Freeman house and amuses them with the tragedy of his childhood. It's then revealed that his white supremacist mother, Bunny Ruckus, was the one who convinced him that he was adopted and actually a great white man suffering from a skin disease called revitiligo, which made him appear Black. Ruckus was also constantly singled out for physical abuse by his adopted, but in truth biological father, Mr. Ruckus, while his mother, Bunny, continued to specially teach him to be pro-white.
I had two younger brothers, my brother Darrell and my other brother Darrell. But Mister always seemed to single me out the worst. I would get beatings for anything.
Nigga, did you just break that vase?
Sweet Jesus! Lord have mercy! My baby!
Just having fun was off limits in Mister's house.
Nigga, did I just catch you having fun?
Sweet Jesus! Lord have mercy! My baby!
Every day, he reminded me of what a failure I was going to be.
Mister, I want to be a doctor when I grow up.
Nigga, did I just catch you wanting to be shit?
Okay, here's another part where that little psychology hat like pops on. It's like, well, how much did mom do to actually do anything about it other than just screaming and holding him? So you've got this obvious physical abuse, you've got this obvious verbal and emotional abuse, and then you got mom who basically just screams and snuggles him and doesn't do anything to change the
Help.
behavior or help or anything, really. And yeah.
I think here we too get like this interesting notion that's going to carry out throughout this episode of inherited trauma and also inherited racism. Like the mom with her white praise, white supremacy is, birthing that into Ruckus. And then the father, who has this resentment we learn about a little bit later, he's like taking that trauma and like spanking, is considered inherited trauma within Black families and stuff. Like we see him passing this kind of fucked up nature into Ruckus. So just an interesting note there.
Right, exactly.
On the two different
one of I always wondered as we've gone through this series, like what made Ruckus so fucked up? What made him just the most racist Black man possible? And even at this point in the episode, which is only like 10 minutes in, right? Like you already are like, oh, okay. Like, you're like, oh, he was abused and he was told that it was because he was adopted, or basically he was led to believe, he was told by mom, but led to believe by dad. Like dad let him go along with that. Funny enough that he blamed it on some psychology book that she read. But
it's just like you were saying too, though, about like him beating her or beating Ruckus. I'm sorry. Like he never steps in to correct the trauma. You know what I mean? So like here he is spanking the kid and being, a horrible father. She does nothing about it but cry and scream. Here she is fucking him up, teaching him self-hate and white supremacy. And the father does nothing but, until this episode, stand by and watch it.
Right.
And I think it's important the show took a moment to emphasize what you were just explaining, though, about like how fucked up Ruckus is. Like we get like Granddad and Riley and Huey's reaction to, damn, oh my God, like I knew, I don't like you, but that's horrible.
Do you, now, I have a thought. Do you think so? Darrell and Daryl didn't get in trouble like Ruckus did. Mr. Ruckus was constantly, whether it was the Klan or police or whatever, beaten by white people. Bunny.
Well, we hadn't talked about that yet.
No, but here, Bunny is telling Uncle that he's white. Do you think that Mr. then is saying, well, if she sees him as white, I'm going to treat him like I want to treat white people?
I think
just a thought.
I think basically that Mr. Ruckus by the end of the episode makes it very plain that the reason why he hates Ruckus is because he thinks that by the birth of this baby that it totally ruined his life and that he was never able to be something because of this baby. And that's a very fucking common thing in children born, quote unquote out of wedlock, because, they were supposedly, they got married, in Bunny's eyes, they got married to adopt this beautiful white baby, but in Dad's eyes, it was a shotgun wedding. So that's right. I don't think he gave a shit that whatever mom did with Ruckus. I think he just didn't want to have anything to do with that kid. And when Ruckus would appear in front of him, he would hit him. It wasn't, there was no, it had nothing to do with him being white. It was, he fucking hated that kid, but kicked him out at 7.
Yeah.
So.
And I think they get into it too, though, in a roundabout way.
Right.
Again, not because he thinks he's white or believes any of that nonsense. When one of the brothers, I don't think either one of us picked this clip, maybe I did, I'm not sure, starts talking about how maybe he was so hard on them because it's a hard world for a Black man. Like I know friends of all races who have dealt with abuse in their households. And this is typically, and still have relationships with their parents, but this is typically what it always falls back to is, oh, we're immigrants, or, oh, you were a woman. It's always this story of, I needed you to understand how hard the world is and da-da-da-da-da. Y'all, inherited trauma. But I'm sorry, I won't keep us hung up on that.
That's all right.
No, it's totally okay.
I mean, that's what this episode is about. It's about abuse. So,
and
how it affects people. So, yeah.
My dad used to joke. Okay, this was a joke. My dad used to joke that he only hit me once. And then he would say, once, because it taught me my lesson. And that was normalized, And that was, if you know the backstory, it is, I don't want to say it's justifiable, but you're like, okay, you bit him. So, because basically that's what happened. But yeah, like he would tell me stories And so, like, in his own way, he was trying to break that cycle, I know, because that was the only time he ever lost his temper physically. But he would tell me stories about, going up back and cutting a switch and, having certain punishments that were basically just, taking away your shoes for a month or, things like that. I'm like, wow, that's fucked. So, like, in his own way, he was trying to break that cycle. True. But he also had massive PTSD, probably some complex PTSD too. But instead of doing anything really about that, it was the 80s and he had beer. So, like, this family dynamic with Ruckus, I wish any of it feels surprising or like outrageous. Like, my own trauma is minor compared to some of the shit that I've had my students tell me or kids that I've worked with tell me that they've lived through. So, I can spot these parents a mile away. Sure, they're shitty ass parents who are going to create very predictable outcomes for their children. In this case, they're very lucky that 2 out of their 3 children are quote unquote functioning in society. Whereas Ruckus is working, 47 jobs, and none of them can afford him more than just a shack on the edge of town. I don't know. Just, it's all tied in together. Anyway.
Yes, I could keep going, but I'm like, we're gonna unwrap this whole episode before we get through the script.
Right?
So do it.
All right. So at the end of the story, Nellie, aka Grandma, is furious about Ruckus leaving her alone in the shack and invades the Freeman household to die in the comfort of Robert's recliner. Uncle Ruckus's family then comes to the Freeman residence to see her die. Overjoyed to reunite with her long-lost son, Bunny, who now has those blue contacts, tells Ruckus all the good things going on in his brother's lives. Excuse me, one of them working for and getting promoted by a white boss, the other one running his own business and getting married to a white woman who had his name tattooed on her white boob, her white titty. That's just like, to Ruckus, that is like the epitome right there. You got a white woman to tattoo your name on her boob? Whoa. So Ruckus is overjoyed and proud of them until his bitter father insults him for accomplishing nothing in his life, making him out to be not white, but a Mexican. In his anger, he reveals that Uncle Ruckus's adoption and revitiligo was a lie that Bunny had made up to improve Uncle's self-esteem.
I don't hate you because you adopted. I hate you because knocking up your mama killed my chance of me ever experiencing a single moment of happiness or joy for the rest of my damn life.
Baby, don't listen to him.
After that, it was more and more hungry niggas miles to feed. All my big plans gone right down the shitter. I worked my life away for these damn crackers. Still couldn't make my ends meet.
Mister, now you leave the white man out of this.
Shut your ass up, Bunny. I'm sick of you talking about that goddamn white man all the time. Name one of them who ever did shit for any of you. Huh? Can't do it, can you? Look at what you did. All my kids is some damn Uncle Toms. And you the worst. A black fool who hates himself so much he can't even see what's in front of him in the mirror. Just another black nigga like the rest of us.
I hate you. You the reason why after I say the name Ruckus, I always say no relation. I am adopted. I am adopted.
Right, there's so much
To unpack.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like I said earlier about, that Mr. Ruckus basically feels that Uncle Ruckus ruined his life and basically created the circumstances that, gave him more kids, basically. I had to marry your mom because I knocked her up. And then because we were married and I got to do what I wanted to do, we had more kids because at the time there was no way to really stop that. Well, they had birth control right in the 50s, right? When did birth control start?
They definitely did.
Yeah.
They had birth control in the 1800s.
Right. There was all kinds of, but like the birth control pill was in the 60s though, right? Okay. So, but that's also, again, a totally, I don't want to say a totally normal thing, but for that boomer generation, it's a totally normal thing. You got caught knocking up the girl down the street, you're going to marry her and you're going to stay married. And it doesn't matter if you like each other or not, you're going to stay married. And
Oh, yeah.
19,
And I
okay.
think I said it on this potty. My mom had, I think, 13. My mom is one of 13 and my dad is one of 15. Now, there were some like deaths in there, but that's why my family's so freaking huge because my parents are a little older than most of my friends' parents. So their parents are from an older generation. And y'all, they were popping out babies like, whoa.
Yeah, my dad's side of the family too. He was there were there are 7 let's see. There were 7 walkers that I could name off the top of my head, but I have been told without any specific proof that there is another who passed for white in the late 40s and basically cut off the family. So theoretically, there's another one out there. And one of my uncles had a lot of kids. I don't know how many at this point. I should actually check in with my cousin about that because he was trying to find all of them. So yeah. And then there's my dad. Like my dad had 1 kid. My aunt Juanita had 1 kid. My aunt Eula Faye had 1 kid. And then all the rest had a bunch. I've never met most of my dad's family. It's kind of sad, but I've met a few because of Facebook. Oh, that's a fun sound.
Sorry, the cat was crying. I don't know if you guys could hear her, so I told my husband, come get her. She's crying loudly. But yeah, that is nuts. And they're going to find you through Ancestry or whatever, all these DNA services. Just fucking wait.
I am.
No longer be in a relationship.
I did actually try to get my dad to do one of those kits before he died, like a few years before. But going through his stuff, I found it completely still sealed, of course. Yeah. But I did it. And, I'm hoping more on my dad's side of the family will. Lots on my mom's side. Crazy how spread out that became. I was not expecting that. So, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Let's see. Where was I adopted? Yeah, and the cognitive dissonance that Ruckus just like clings to because this just has to be real. There's no way I can be related to that man by blood. No way. That's his whole no relation thing. Just it's all about not actually being related to that man. So
I keep looking to make sure I'm not like like commenting on things before we get to them.
Right.
But it's that thing of like
to do that too.
healing trauma. Like it's crazy to me. I know, and they touch on it towards the end, but it's crazy to me. Like you can't just be like, okay, this is the way my parents always did things, and so this is the way I'm gonna do it. This is what I remember one of my aunties did tell me, like we were part Native American, and I can remember being little and my mom saying, don't you ever repeat that shit. Because, many Black people do that. And she was, don't get into that. But I guess that is one of those things to be closer to whiteness that was passed around in my family. And yeah, there is a tiny bit there in DNA, but not enough for my auntie to be telling me that kind of shit. So at some point you have to like look at the facts and do your own healing or question the shit that you've been taught or that's been passed down. And like for Ruckus to be this grown ass 50-something-year-old man and have this, you're not my father, I'm adopted, moment. It's kind of like, bruh. But a lot of people do, and I'm not trying to judge or hate on y'all, but a lot of people do get into their 40s and 50s and have these kind of moments of, let me not. My mom, I'll say it quick. My mom always told me my favorite uncle, let's delete favorite. One of my uncles who passed away recently, he called her, she said, they didn't speak for a few years and they were like the closest of the siblings. They didn't speak for a few years because he would call her every week and just talk quickly and get off the phone. But she said One of those phone calls each month was always him talking about what horrible, abusive, neglectful parents they have, that their mother was the worst. So abusive. She was so abusive. She was so selfish. My mom said one day she just said to him, you have got to let this go. You got to let this go. You are 60 something years old. Let it go. And he cursed her out and slammed the phone down. And he was just like, bruh, you are 65 plus years old. Stop it. Because when people know better, they do better and all that, which we're going to get into later. But it reminds me of this clip with the whole "you're not my father" stuff. Like, man, you got to let that shit go.
Absolutely. I actually, real quick, to your point about the Native American blood thing, one of the things that I've actually found out, which is very funny to me, so my grandmother was registered as a member of the Choctaw. I do not have enough Native American blood in me for my grandmother to have been as Native American as she was registered as. However, when it comes to the Choctaw, I have discovered that there were a lot of freed slaves that were made members, that were named members when they were freed, because the Choctaw would take them in. And that's really cool. I don't actually have as much Native blood as I thought I did, but my grandmother was made, or my great-grandmother, I have to figure that out actually, was made a full member of the tribe by the people at that time. It would be my great-great-grandmother actually. Anyway.
That's freaking beautiful and fascinating. We can move on. I'd be watching too much YouTube, but I always watch Navajo teachers. And I know the one was saying, I don't know if they took Black people into the Navajo tribe, but he was saying that is like the firmest law of the Navajo culture, is that you cannot own slaves. And so a lot of people left the tribe when slavery was going on. And I don't know, I guess they renounced their sort of faith and stuff, because Navajos say, hell no, it's the biggest atrocity you can make as a human being to try and take possession of it. So I don't know. It's just really cool that the Choctaw took it a step further and took people into the tribe. I don't know. Just beautiful and random.
But also you got to think that most of the Choctaw Nation was across like Louisiana and Oklahoma and like places that had full on slavery. So like Choctaw Nation was a place where freed slaves could run to. And I think that was their way of helping them not have to be returned to their owners or whatever. Like, I still need to learn a hell of a lot more. If any of our listeners out there know any of that story, let me know. Because all of this understanding that I have started with children's books that I am still trying to find more information on. So
it's beautiful.
Yeah. There are some histories that just never got told. So I'm curious.
Anyway. And you're going to talk about in your new YouTube channel. Yes, moving on.
Or probably that book that I'm eventually going to write someday, maybe possibly. Anyway, so after this conversation where Ruckus's dad had told him the truth, it upsets him so much that he leaves the room in tears, regrouping with the Freemans upstairs and finishing his tragic tale about how his father, enraged by the verbal abuse of his quote-unquote dying mother, mercilessly threw him out of the house, and him confusingly receiving several injuries, like the broke teeth that he currently has, bear trap that screwed up his foot. So that explained, like, origin stories for some of the shit that is wrong with Ruckus happened in this story. Enough, though, Ruckus seems to have had a glass eye since he was at least 4 years old, and they did not actually show him getting it, unless I missed something somewhere. But he had the fake eye when he was running around playing outside. I'm like, hey. Okay. Anyway, Easter egg. So surprisingly, this makes the Freemans weep over the story and feel sorry for him, except Huey, although he declared the story Academy Award nominated sad.
Look, Uncle Ruckus, we know what it's like to have an abusive parental figure, to suffer the mental and physical abuse.
Hey, this ain't about me. Leave that alone.
The endless work, clean up your room, take out the trash, do your homework.
Okay, so I picked that one because it cracked me up.
Wondering when the next whooping gonna come.
To be fair, Robert does not need to be whipping his kids. That I do not believe in a corporal punishment in any way, shape, or form. But the fact that he's like making us clean our rooms and do the dishes and do our homework, I'm like, kid, shut the fuck up. Like, that is not the same thing.
It's the inherited trauma shit, though, again.
Yes.
Like, a lot of, like, now you can't spank kids anymore. I grew up, I got spanked more than any of my siblings because I was just not, as you can imagine. I was mouthy, and my mom would say, do shit, and I would be like, when I'm ready. I was such a bad kid that, like, she was extremely strict and I was extremely rebellious. I used to run to the stairs when she was going to spank me so that I could throw myself down the stairs and accuse her of, like, you're abusive. I was such a little shit.
Wow.
I'm dead serious. But yes, I already told the story about, like, how I dealt with that kind of trauma or whatever. Oops, sorry, my little pillow alarm's going off. But she, again, with my uncle always calling her and saying, like, how abusive their mother was. My mom had told me in passing, and I know I shouldn't be telling her business because she hates that shit, how her mom, if you were going to get spanked, if you didn't, like, do the laundry correctly, she said her mom would grab anything nearby and just start going to town on you. Frying pans, broomsticks, all that kind of stuff. But then 80s, 90s, people were spanking their kids. And not just Black people, white people too. It's that inherited, it used to be okay to whack a kid around a little bit. And so we just passed this shit on down. And now it's finally, okay, we can't spank our kids, or we don't say that we spank our kids in public and this kind of stuff. The narrative is changing. And I do agree with you. I don't see myself having been spanked, ever spanking a kid, because it just felt so wrong as a child. Sometimes, listen, I used to ask to get spanked by the end. After she stopped spanking me, I'd be like, can't you just spank me so I can play Nintendo? No, Go sit in your room. And I hated that shit worse. So there are other things you can do besides being physical with a child and passing on.
And using punishment or using physical punishment as a consequence of something that a kid did is only going to teach them that a physical consequence is okay, basically. Whether or not that physical consequence is a smack upside the head or a smack on the ass or going out and cutting a switch or, whatever. If you are just, again, from somebody who has raised hundreds of other people's kids, if you are assigning a consequence that is so negative that you can actually traumatize them, AKA hitting them, there are kids that will be fine. There are kids that will just slide off their back and they'll be like, whatever, bitch, you didn't teach me shit. There'll be kids who will be so fucking traumatized that they will never be able to have a relationship without some kind of physical aspect to it like that. And I'm not saying that in a kink sort of way, because a lot of that shit does show up in kinks. I'm not kink shaming in any way. But usually, at least in most kink circles that I know, that is approached in a healthy way. When you are traumatized and you are working through your trauma in an unhealthy way, you're not going to be doing things like having the best communication with your partner. You're just going to be screaming at them, or you might not hit them, but you might throw things at them, or you might make them feel like you're going to hit them. And that was the thing that my dad would do. Would just basically make me feel like he was going to hit me. And that was enough, because
absolutely,
that was fucking scary. My dad was 6 foot something, 300 and something pounds from the time I was very little. He worked on the railroad before he was injured. So he was a very, very strong man. And he made a point. He was not going to hit me, but he wanted to. That's not better. Like,
for sure.
And it's one of those things, like, if you want to teach your child to do something, don't enforce the negative. Enforce the thing that they're doing that you want them to do. Make them feel like they want to do that thing because it makes you happy, or because, the quote unquote consequences are positive. I would tell my students all the time, there's always going to be a consequence to whatever action, whatever decision you make. There will always be a consequence, but it is up to you whether that consequence is a positive one. I just finished my homework, so I get to play an hour of video games. That's my positive consequence. I didn't do my homework, so I don't get to play video games. There's your negative consequence. There doesn't need to be a hit. Make it a logical thing. They did something wrong.
Agree.
Yeah. So anyway.
To add on to what you're saying, just a quick add on, y'all, it's not just physical, because I will give my parents credit for that. Never was I ever called out of my name or put down or called never. I have had friends whose homes, I'm not even black friends, white friends, all races. I've been at their house and heard the way their parents would speak to them. And I would just be like, you've got to be kidding me. Person, you're a fucking idiot. Why would you do that? Use your fucking head. Don't you think da 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 da? Like in front of me, you know, I'm like I'm just here visiting, you know, that shit is nuts too. You don't need to do that shit to your kid. You're leaving scars and all kinds of things that, you know, don't know what you're doing. And I've seen it with other kids, friends I know who have kids or whatever. I've seen the way their kids internalize that shit and then will say shit to me like, not to me, or I hear them saying passing, you know, oh, I know I'm stupid. And I'm just like, no, don't fucking say that shit. Like, where are you getting that? But then you think, oh, I heard your father or whoever yell at you and call you fucking stupid and ask if you use your head. That's where they're getting it.
Yep.
Oh, child.
Yeah.
Don't verbally abuse either.
Don't do any of it. Like emotional
Right. And I know I
manipulation
don't have
is
kids,
abuse.
so I shouldn't
There's so many there. Oh God.
Mm.
Because that's, you know, a whole nother hour we don't need to go into right now. But if I
That's a whole nother hour. I'd love to hear you speak to it though, but a lot of these fucked up people you meet in these streets, that's where it fucking came from.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Oh, I did want to say one other thing. When Ruckus was complaining about, you know, there's no way that I can be related to that man. We don't even look alike. Like, I laughed so fucking hard because Ruckus and Daryl and Darrell look like they could be triplets when one just had a much worse life than the other. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Ruckus looks a little road hard, but... They're
I
definitely all
almost picked
related.
that when we were talking about white people questions. That was almost one that I submitted because I always get, like I said, my siblings are very different shades of color. So I've had people ask us like, oh, how do you guys have the same dad? Yes, we have the same fucking parents. Not that, you know, whatever. Black people just got so many shades that I hate when people say, oh, but you guys don't look alike, but you're different colors. White people, black people, whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. You don't have to look like your fucking siblings. Jesus.
Well, not only that, too.
Anyway,
like,
sorry, moving on.
No, but that's actually a really valid point. Like, when I was really little, my mom would constantly get harassment, basically, of people thinking that she wasn't my mother. Now, if you put my baby picture next to my mother's baby picture, we look exactly alike. I'm just a brown version. And with my dad's nose. Definitely have my dad's nose. But, like, there is no way that we're not related. If you met us today at 60 something and 42, like you can see that, especially here on the phone. Anyway, people do not come out carbon copies. Like, you're not, if siblings look alike, cool. That means one of you has really strong genes that were really dominant over everything else. But that's not everybody. And, you know, if you have more than 2 kids, the chances are one of them is going to look nothing like you because it's all your recessive genes or something.
Exactly. And even like you were just saying, though, with you and your mom, where the resemblance is so strong, that slight color variation is such a wall of disbelief that they just can't get over. Oh, where did she come from? Oh, you babysit?
Did you adopt?
Yeah, please.
Oh man, I used to totally bullshit that when I was a nanny.
In school.
Yes, right?
Oh no.
The blue eyes, brown eyes graph from, what was that, biology, probably, like back my freshman year. I still remember that.
Yeah.
I know there's some kind of specific name for that, but anyway. And, you know, I just
either
like to, yeah, okay. So Ruckus's brother Daryl finally comes upstairs to announce that Nellie has died on Robert's recliner. While all of this was going on, upsetting Robert that she had to die on his living, he then basically says that he wants the chair destroyed by a chainsaw. As the family leaves the house, Bunny reaffirms that Ruckus is indeed adopted and white, disclaiming Mister's confession with the remark that we darkies are a mess. Basically saying it's a good thing that you're white, you know, because we're terrible. The next day, Ruckus is seen working at the graveyard and is greeted by his brothers who help him dig their grandmother's grave. Uncle asks about Mister's hatred of the world. no reason.
What I never could understand was how the man got to be
that's
so
exactly
hateful,
why I picked
so
it.
mad at the woman for no reason.
It's kind of a skew from the episode, right? But it's that angry black woman, angry black man sort of myth, stereotype, whatever you want to call it. We have reasons. Okay, fuck off.
Right?
But we can go back to the story.
But it's just funny that his brothers obviously had longer with Dad because Ruckus was thrown out of the house so young. But so his younger brothers were able to grow up and see the reality of how the white world treated their father. So then his brothers are revealing their father's backstory.
No, Uncle, it's true. Every time Mister went out into the world, the white man took a little more of his dignity and his sanity and his humanity. He served white folks his whole life. He even worked for the police department as a practice dummy. Sometimes they would just abuse him for no reason.
Good job, boy.
Well, he must have done something. It just ain't in the white man's nature to act cruel
There's
for
so
no
much
reason.
you can talk about here as well. I picked it because I just was like, oh, this is a good example of how, like, you know, we're talking about inherited trauma throughout this episode and families, but it's not just restricted to families. It also relates to society, and we see that in the treatment of Mr.
And that it's not just one. It's not just one white person. It's every white person basically that Mr. encountered was physically abusive and just terrible human beings.
Absolutely. And then for Ruckus to say he must have done something. This is like this thing we see online, like anytime someone is, you know, wrongfully murdered by the police. We don't know the full story. We don't know. We need to get the full story. Well,
we need
he
both
was acting
sides.
Aggressively. Yeah. Like it always comes down to that shit. Like, oh, because the white man's nature is not to act cruel for no reason. Now, white people, I'm not trying to come at you. I sound like Trump. I'm not trying to come at you. but if we look at oral history, y'all pretty aggressive with that colonization.
Just a little bit.
I'm not saying it's all of you, but yeah.
I mean,
kind of cruel for no reason.
There have been, I would say, the majority of cruelties in the country that we currently live in, the continent that we currently live on. I would say the majority of the big atrocities have been descendants of white settlers and explorers. Not that they're all fully white or whatever, but just that, you know, religion. Let's just go with religion. How many wars have been fought on the basis of a quote unquote white religion? You know, once it started becoming, you know, this is European only, or we're going to turn everybody who is any other religion, we're going to, like, that's 90% of colonization right there was because of religion.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, as I was arguing this on Twitter the other day, it was the tool of religion was used as this is what we're doing. But just still, your point stands
Justification,
strong and valid.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about them crusades where they had 12-year-olds going out to fight their wars. Why? To kill all the Islams. What?
Well, you're a 12-year-old back then. That's like being 40 now.
I know, true. Very true. You were probably married by 12. Well, if you were a girl, you were married by 12.
And had 5 kids.
By 13.
Damn.
Anyway. Yeah. So Daryl comments that their father abusing them was perhaps his misguided way of trying to toughen them up for a tough world. No, it was just him getting angry from all of his terrible treatment and choosing one person to inflict all of that anger on. Then at the funeral, Mr. again acts inappropriately, sickening Ruckus to the point where he stands up to him, accusing Mr. of abusing him because Nellie abused him as a child too. Ruckus declares that Mister's attitude to them is getting old and snaps at him to get it all out of your system and sit down and shut the fuck up, shocking everyone at the funeral, including Ruckus himself. Mister becomes furious and attempts to beat his son with a bottle, but the constant beatings he took from the past flare up exclusively in his back, where he took the most abuse, and he ends up falling into his mother's empty grave, breaking his neck and killing himself, and fulfilling Nellie's second wish that Mister would reach her grave before her. Technically, the wish was unfilled because she meant that she wanted her son to die before she did, but he actually made it into the grave before she did.
Ridiculous.
It's so fucking ridiculous.
It's not funny, but it is.
Like, Nellie blamed Mister for ruining her life. So then when Mister had a kid, his first kid, that ruined his life. It's just that cycle over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Inherited trauma. And if you don't break it, it'll do you in.
Then suddenly Bunny is overjoyed now that she can finally marry her white lover. Uncle Ruckus is sorry that his father never learned to love the white man, and the Freemans walk home. Robert's satisfied to see the end to the tragic Ruckus's story.
I never thought I'd say this, but our family isn't as messed up as I thought.
I feel great. I saw a story that moved me emotionally,
Yeah, me too. I hate to be them.
and I've learned my lesson. I see I've been too soft on you guys all this time. From now on, I'm really gonna let you have it. I'm finna give y'all some of them good old-fashioned country beating. Come here.
Stop it, Granddad. You crazy.
I'm gonna hit you with a switch.
Why you ain't laughing?
Something bigger than a switch. Like some firewood. Throw you out into the field. Push you out of a moving car.
Yeah, this is what we talked about in our pre-show a little bit. Jesus. And that granddad, like, his takeaway from all of this is, I should beat you more. Yeah.
Yes. And even though he's joshing and joking, it also goes back to the clip you were talking about with Riley. Oh, we don't know when the next beating is going to come from, if we have to wash the dishes or do our homework. And we have seen that Grant does spank the boys in several episodes. So this clip, that's why this clip to me is funny, because we all do this shit. Like I said, I was spanked as a kid. But I would go to friends' houses and hear their parents talking to them like shit, which I never experienced. And I would be like, damn, I've got it way better than Nicole. I'm just making up a name, you know? Like, so that's the shit. So you can't sit here, though. And I always say compare pain. Like, you shouldn't do that. Just to say, yo, spanking is fucked up. Hitting is fucked up. And let's just leave it there. Verbal abuse is fucked up. And let's leave it there. Do not fall in this trap of looking at other people's fucking trauma and saddling up on your soapbox or high horse because it's not yours. And that's where the next clip is going to come in, I think, as well.
Yeah. So let's get to that. So later on, Ruckus bids goodbye to his family and has some final thoughts.
It's hard to escape becoming your parents. Hard, but not impossible. Hopefully it's easier when they're your adopted parents. I hadn't realized before how much my hatred of the Negro came from my hatred of Mister. Maybe it was time to stop hating niggas for being black and start having sympathy for them for being hopelessly inferior to white folks. But as far as darkers go, my adopted family is
so
all
much to
right.
unpack here. But I'll start with where I left off with the last clip, which is, like I said, you can't look at other people's trauma and then assume that you're sort of better because you didn't experience it. And in this clip, I think we could see, even on this podcast each week, we've talked about how horrible Ruckus is, how awful he is, how disgusting he is. But now we get the backstory, and a lot of it is made for us to understand and give him sympathy. Like, this man was abused, like you said, had a glass eye at the age of 3 or 4. So it's, oh, yeah, I guess we should have some empathy and some sympathy and just not, don't be so cruel and unsympathetic to people as Uncle Ruckus has been to Black people without taking the time to consider they might have a story. There might be a reason why Jake is so fucking fucked up or manipulative or narcissistic or whatever,
All of those things in adults came from somewhere. Yep.
And also that kind of, for me, this kind of ties back into Ebony Brown when Ruckus was talking to her in the restaurant, and she's like, you know, all this stuff is reprehensible, but it makes me reflect back on myself and think of myself more critically. So I think that both those kind of tie in together there.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, I think that at the base, yes, that all of that is true. I also, though, am the kind of person that if you have gotten to your 50s and you are still all up in all of this foulness, that's your choice more than your upbringing. You know that your life was shit by this point. You know that you probably have some unhealthy coping mechanisms or reactions to things or whatever because of the shit that you've been through. You should go to fucking therapy. And if therapy is not available to you for whatever reason, because it's cost preventative most of the time to a lot of people, you know, there are support groups out there. There are online forums where you can find people who can help you out. There are ways to work through that fucking trauma without just being a nasty human.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
So,
but that's why I always say everyone's responsible for your own healing. And it's never too late to heal, but I'm with you. Like I say, like around 25, I stopped giving a pass. And even I know for many people, it's before that. It's like when you become conscious of your choices and like what you were explaining earlier about consequences. Once you can grasp that, it's come on, buddy. There really is no excuse. You should start doing your healing. Like even here, though, in Ruckus's, you know, monologue at the end, we can see he has started, right? Just by standing up to his father and facing this shit, he has started down the path. But there are so many inherited pieces of shit that are still floating around his consciousness. Like, oh, I should have sympathy for Black people because they are so hopelessly inferior to white folks. You're still running with the white supremacy you inherited. Something else he said, oh, how much of my hatred came from my dad. Okay, okay, you're starting, right? You're starting to unpack it. But honey, you got a long way to go at this old age.
What do you think about the fact that this season we've seen Ruckus really have his first taste of liking Black people? There was the Ebony Brown, like he actually found a Black woman that, despite hating Black women, you know, he was still like, I could marry her. And he's actually saying, you know, even though my family are these Black people, they're still okay, which is more than he's ever said about pretty much any other Black people ever in the show anyway. So,
well,
are we seeing Ruckus grow?
Yeah, I think so. I think like this season, honestly, we had a lot of Ruckus-centric episodes. And like with Jimmy Rebel, like that, even though it was about him and Jimmy, they also juxtaposed that with him and Granddad's kind of love relationship. It's definitely there and giving us also backstory into this character. Very Ruckus heavy, I would say season 3 was.
That's the reason why a lot of people didn't like it.
Yeah, I think, well, season 4 that people don't like. Yeah. So, yeah, because this was the last season with Magruder. But I think that I got to go with that. Yeah, I think Magruder uses Ruckus, and I think I brought this up before, as a racist foil where if he'd have put a white person in there, it would have been way too much backlash, I think, that he would have, oh, how racist white person. But if they have a racist Black guy, you know, there could be some humor in that, I think is where he wanted it to not, he wanted the message, but not to hit like a ton of bricks, maybe. You know what I'm saying? So if the racism is coming from your own, then it's not seen. If Black folks had been watching, because this is a show written and made by and for Black folks.
Yeah.
Had that been a white person that had been that blatantly racist, they probably wouldn't have watched the show. So, as my guess.
But yet every Black person probably knows somebody in their family, extended family, whatever, that is similar to Ruckus.
Sure.
So, Whereas white people watching it would be like, ooh, I got relatives like that.
Yep.
I don't laugh at them.
But they're not as cute as Ruckus. So.
Cute is an interesting word.
Ruckus has his certain charm about him, I guess. You know. I mean, yeah.
So just a couple of little notes that I had that I wanted to point out before we moved on to the next part. So there was a scene in the beginning of the episode where we saw burning crosses outside of the window that Mr. had to deal with all of the white people nonsense. He also, it was very blatant racism. So I wanted to make sure that was pointed out. Grandma Nellie with the switchblade in basically threatening anybody, straight razor. But when she threatened Granddad with it, he was ready to throw down. They had to restrain him from beating her up. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, Huey was the first one to jump in there. He had to come all the way across the room from the couch.
Let's see. And then there was the trivia stuff. So this episode strongly references the Steven Spielberg directed film The Color Purple, which both Lynxi and I picked up on immediately. But it also has a lot of similarities to the film Precious, which I have to admit I have never actually seen. We talked about this beforehand, but it's not the kind of trauma porn that I can handle. So and then the joke, my brother Daryl and my other brother Daryl, but it's Daryl and Darrell. It's an homage to the TV show Newhart, where they had my brother Daryl and my other brother Daryl.
I'm Larry. This is my brother Daryl and my other brother Daryl.
Also, Daryl and Darrell and Uncle Ruckus, all voiced by the same guy. So I love that they did that. It's just the same voice. And even Riley was crying like a baby with Ruckus's story, even though he tried to blame it on, allergies or whatever.
Yeah.
But his eyes were just pouring.
And of course, initially it was, I'm not going to cry because that's gay.
Right. Everything is. Everything.
Yeah.
You need to write a song. Everything is gay. All right. Anything else that you caught that we haven't gone over, my friend?
Oh, no. Not out.
All right. So you want to...
Welcome to Stupid White People Questions.
You mean I'm gonna stay this color?
Welcome to Stupid White People Questions. So, as many folks are probably already aware, the person, Kyle Rittenhouse, who killed 2 people and shot another, and all these other things. Yeah, he was acquitted of all charges, and which, needless to say, made lots of folks very upset, including, I think, everybody else here on this podcast. But when you would argue about that online with anybody, especially the what is it that MJ says? Wahite?
Yep.
the Wahite folks say, well, I don't know why you're upset. Kyle was just defending himself. Andrew Coffey also got found not guilty because of self-defense.
Yeah. So if you don't follow along the news, or you were watching a station that did not cover the Andrew Coffey trial, that was basically a case of a no-knock warrant and him defending himself against a perceived threat, which was a SWAT team. But they tried to basically charge him with injuries that happened during that, and he was acquitted, rightly so. That is a case of a Black man having a very competent attorney for once, in a case like this, and having the legal precedent that has been set semi-recently, with laws being changed. But the Kyle Rittenhouse one, without blaming anybody in particular, I will say that it was very obvious from the beginning that what the verdict was going to be. The prosecution was not as effective at their job as one would like. And I didn't watch the entire trial because that hurts too much. But you had a judge whose phone rang in the middle of court, and it was a fucking song that like they played at the January 6 rallies. And you had a judge who wouldn't let the two people murdered be referred to as victims, but was totally okay with them being referred to as looters or rioters. You had a jury that was almost entirely white. You had a lot of it comes down to the judge, in my opinion, honestly. I don't blame that defense attorney for pulling out anything that he could think of to work for his client, because that's his job. I do think that a judge that has run unopposed for his position for the last 20 years, who was very obviously, who had very obviously made up his decision before the trial completed. I think that was the main problem in that situation. And the fact that an underage boy took an illegal firearm that he was not allowed to own.
He wasn't allowed to purchase.
He wasn't allowed to purchase, but his mother did it for him, right?
Okay, so he now what should have happened was, because he gave money to a friend of his who was 18 in Wisconsin. So his father is so the reason he's going back, he worked in Wisconsin. His father lived in Wisconsin. He lives in Illinois. So that's why he's driving back and forth. However, he drove over himself. Initially his mother claimed that she drove him. My guess is that she claimed it because he does not have a driver's license. So he illegally
and also
drove over.
Taking that gun across state lines was illegal.
No, the gun was already in Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
So his buddy kept it at until he could say he was 18 and take possession of it at that point. He could carry a long rifle, which is what that rifle is considered, a long rifle. He was allowed to have that at that age. He was not allowed to purchase it, though. He basically, that's what he did. So his friend should have been basically, I don't know what the law would be about purchasing a weapon for somebody who's not of age to be able to purchase the weapon. So to me, that's something. He illegally drove himself across state lines, got a weapon he should not have had, because he was not old enough to buy it himself. He paid somebody else who illegally purchased it for him.
Announced to police and whoever would listen to at this protest that he was an EMT, and that
which was
he was
not
supposed
true.
to be there, which obviously not true because he's 17 at the time. He instigated the fight that ended up, quote unquote, being life-threatening to him. He shot somebody carrying a skateboard, someone who literally was knew he probably was going to die because he's running towards an active shooter in his mind. And this fucker is able to get off. Anyway, the reason why, I had mentioned this one to Dean as a stupid white people question in particular is because a lot of what I heard in the days after this was that the Kyle Rittenhouse case was not about race. That somehow this shooting was not race-based, was not racially motivated. The problem with that is that he went to a Black Lives Matter rally thinking that there would be this chance for him to be a hero, and ended up causing the everything that happened. And the fact that he was that the people that he attacked were protesting the death of a black man. They were not there doing anything illegal on their own either. It's ridiculous to me that people can't see that that's connected to race. And then the judge wouldn't allow any of the evidence going in after the fact, that after he was basically let to go free, he posed with Proud Boys and he's flashing the white power symbol all across the country, and he's making a fucking documentary with Fox News the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. This one.
Absolutely. I think he went and hung out with Tucker Carlson as well and all of this sort of stuff.
Tucker Carlson is the one doing the documentary. So he's been hanging out with Tucker Carlson since he was arrested the first time.
There's also a video so this was 2 weeks before this happened. Rittenhouse and a friend were in a car watching people leave CVS store across the street. Rittenhouse apparently believed the people in the store had robbed it or were shoplifting. Rittenhouse said, "I wish I had my AR. I'd fire some rounds at them."
Mm-hmm. He was just hoping to be able to kill somebody. His whole point was to go kill somebody.
Like they said, he said, "Oh, I'm a medic. You were not a medic. You came there looking premeditated, looking for trouble. You found trouble. And I don't want to say lucky for you, but just because you were armed with the bigger weapon, you were the person kind of who came out of the situation alive, except for I know one of the victims, right, was alive and testified.
Yes.
And so you received a pass. Now, if one of the other men, who I think one of them did have a gun, right, had survived and murdered Kyle Rittenhouse, would the outcome have been the same? I kind of doubt it. And also this bit of this question about like Andrew Coffey, this is like not even apples and oranges. This is like fucking apples and prime rib. Like,
yep.
That story, one is about somebody going in to instigate trouble.
Yep.
One is about coming into somebody's space, scaring them, and them truly responding of fear for their lives. It is not the same story or scenario whatsoever. But I do think, like, and I know people were like kind of pissed off too that Joe Biden said, made his little statement about it.
I am not a fan of Joe Biden by any means, but he was correct. What happened was exactly what was supposed to happen. Not that it was the right thing, but technically the system worked. It's if you are somebody that believes in the jury trial, then the system worked. Whatever the result is, 12 people voted that he was not guilty, therefore he's not guilty. And basically Biden said, I believe that our justice system is the best. It's the tits. So I have to believe that this is the right thing and that those 12 people did the right job or did the right thing for what they believed. Like it's all political bullshit, but I am absolutely one of those people that's like, our fucking judicial system is so fucked up that it doesn't even fucking matter. Because again, we knew what the outcome was going to be as soon as he walked through that crowd after shooting people with his hands up, still holding the fucking AR, right past cops who just let him walk on by. We all knew what was going to happen.
Absolutely. And I'm not like any kind of expert on this case, but from the little bit I did read of it, it kind of seemed like even the prosecution kind of was like, kind of throwing the case a little bit.
I don't know if he was throwing it or if he was just kind of incompetent or, didn't know how to get around some of the shit that was happening. Yeah. Didn't fight as hard as he probably could have. Yeah.
Right. That was kind of my feeling on it and why I say like kind of throwing it. But I mean, again, I've only like read certain bits about it here and there. Like, again, I didn't get too invested in it because, like you said, we already knew how this was going to go, one.
Yep.
Two, I think it is also like, my thing with people, any kind of relationship, whatever, is that people communicate to you exactly what they want to say, even if they don't blanketly state it. So what they are trying to communicate is that, listen, if you guys want to get out here and protest against wrongful, quote unquote, wrongful shooting of citizens or Black people, or do your Black Lives Matter protests, the law is not going to be on your side. If you want to be a vigilante and a looter, well, then any kind of trouble that finds you, that's on you. That is what's kind of being communicated to me, I think. So they're kind of saying, like, whatever, okay, you want to go out here and protest? If someone with if a white child with an AK-47 should happen to find you, then, well, that's just how the cookie crumbled. To obey the law. Or even, I think in the Andrew Coffey case, like, they did say something like that, like, oh, if only he would have complied with our demands or something, we wouldn't have opened fire. It was some kind of shit like that that they tried to use as a defense or came out with or whatever. So they're just trying to reinforce this message. Like, you keep it up, keep protesting. Well, we're not going to protect you in any way, shape, or form.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there it is.
And it's just like you said, it is not apples to apples there. Because if it was, then the issue would have been Kyle was at home with his own gun sitting there when the police knocked down the door. And then
somebody knocked down the door.
Well,
that would be the same situation.
Well,
because the Andrew Coffey?
Yeah.
Say that right? He didn't know that it was the police. So
he did not know.
He thought somebody was breaking in.
Yeah.
So Kyle in his own house with his own gun in his house thinks someone is breaking in.
Yeah.
That would be equal. That would be apples to apples.
Yeah.
Whether, it'd be a white person, Black person, same situation. Whoever the intruder ended up being is almost irrelevant if it's the same situation in the base. When it's the cops, though, no matter what, if you shoot back, you're going to be the one probably either dead or
I'm surprised he made it. I'm honestly surprised he made it out alive.
Oh, yeah. It's like
Same with Breonna. Yeah,
Breonna Taylor's boyfriend. Like, how did he survive?
And they tried to charge him
with his own girlfriend's
with
murder.
her death. Yeah. And that's my point when I at the beginning of this, when I went through what the two cases were basically about, a lot of the stuff from the Breonna Taylor case, even though it's nothing really has happened, but it has changed certain laws in places. And that is essentially what led to this exoneration.
Yeah.
So...
And actually, I was just reading a thing in Texas right now. They're trying to get the governor to overturn a conviction of George Floyd, which happened due to a no-knock warrant.
Texas.
So a posthumous overturn.
I'm going to be paying attention to the Texas governor's race for sure, considering I'm not a fan of Beto, but he's going to try
miles better.
He's going to try it. He's going to try it. And he's a centrist in the same way that Joe Biden is, maybe a little slightly left of Biden. And if he can get in Texas, like, I would have faith that this country might get through the next few years. Heavy on the might.
Yep.
I'll leave it with a dark note. Like I talked about earlier, I think pre-show, I was watching that Storm Monroe, and her name is Cynthia G, is the lady he was sitting down with. And he asked her something about the protests, and she said she doesn't really get into the Black Lives Matter protests. And she goes, I think by attending those protests, you are showing the higher ups or whatever that you believe in a system that has no belief in you. Child, I was like, damn, like that shit hits hard. But I thought, yeah, that's valid, girl.
Yeah.
Valid.
Yeah. All right. On that sad note, here's to our live episode next week. Actually, when does this episode come out? This comes out like the day before our live episode, right?
So
okay.
So
tomorrow.
This will come out. Yeah, this will come out. Well, for Patreon members, it'll come out probably tomorrow.
It'll be the same day.
So then,
So if you're not a Patreon member and it's not the 30th and you're not listening to it right now, you're probably going to miss our live episode. But that's okay. Go listen to our live episode.
Yeah. And then on the second, Disputed, doing our last episode for the year, which will be Sarah Connor versus Ellen Ripley.
Which I'm super excited about because those are two of my favorite female badasses.
James Cameron contestant. They're both James Cameron.
They only married one of them.
Well, I know, but James had both movies, though.
True story. All right. Well, he has a habit of marrying the women in his movies. That's why I was joking that he only married one of them.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. Any final thoughts?
Not from me.
All right. Anybody at home who's wondering where MJ is? Stuff comes up in life. We were hoping that she would make it home in time tonight to join us. That's why we went ahead without her. But obviously that didn't happen. But we miss her and we will have her back today, whenever you're listening to our live episode.
Live. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's about everything. Yeah. All right. We'll see you later. Bye.
Don't take this the wrong way, but I need you to get the hell up out of here.
Hey, thanks for joining us again as we make our way through the trials and tribulations of the Freeman family. We hope to see you live on November 30th for the season finale. It's going down. Want to know where to find us on the social medias or where to subscribe to the podcast? Just head right over to www.theboondockspod.com/links.
Have a stupid white people question you want to leave us? Email us at host@theboondockspod.com or leave us a voicemail at 760-933-8636. That's 760-we-3-undo.
Shout out to the artists who've created our intro and outro tunes. Our intro is #MakeAChange by KIRK. You can find them on Spotify, iTunes, and Tidal. Our outro is Good Times by Audio Binger. You can find them on freemusicarchive.org and YouTube.